Good afternoon and welcome to NYFP. In midday and midweek trade, the major U.S. stock averages are in the red. Right now, the Dow and S&P 500 are off by about half a percentage point. Joining me this afternoon ahead of the Fed Minutes is Peter Costa of Empire Executions. Peter, good afternoon. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, we are seeing the Dow and S&P 500 in negative territory. We have less than 2 hours to go until the Fed minutes come out. So what do you expect to hear from the minutes? Can we expect an action?
I think that you're going to get the same thing you've been getting for the last 4 months, which is basically nothing. Just the saying that, we're still watching it, blah, blah, blah. It's almost the same song and dance every month. I would love to hear them say something a little more specific. And even if it has a negative reaction on the market, at least it'll be something. And I think once you have that, at least some sort of framework, a legitimate framework, that people can make an investment decision about where they want to be. And, granted, I think that if they do come up with a framework and they do come up and actually say what they're going to do, it probably will have a negative effect initially. It could be a great buying opportunity if you take some, the fluff out of the market. So I actually want them to say something.
Well, Peter, as you mentioned, there are not too many big expectations heading into those minutes, but I think it is inevitable, and everybody knows that eventually the Fed Reserve will slowly begin tapering. And as a result of that, we've been seeing some interesting action in terms of the emerging market equities as well as the currencies. So what do you make of the sell-off we've been seeing in India as well as Indonesia as well as Turkey?
Well, it's actually a little frightening because their markets are taking, because of the currencies and because of the sell-offs, it's frightening to see that happen. I mean, you have emerging economies in India and Indonesia, which, even with mediocre growth, there'll probably be 5 or 6% getting sold off, and with that kind of veracity, it is a little frightening. Does it, weigh on this market? I don't really think so. I mean, I hate to be like, naive, but I don't think it has as much effect on us as it does overseas. And if you have your money in emerging markets, you're obviously getting impacted. But, as far as the amount of money that's moved into equities over the last 6 months or a year, I think emerging markets has actually been, it's been the laggard, considering that most of it's been in, large cap growth, value, whatever. So I think the emerging market space, people will be impacted, but it won't be nearly as much as you think.
And Peter, we'll continue to keep an eye on the currencies in the EM space. But another thing we've been watching is earnings out from U.S. retailers. We'll continue to get more results heading into tomorrow's session, but we've been seeing some interesting results out from retailers so far this week. So far in today's trading session, we have the best performing S&P 500 component as well as the worst performing. Yes. So what do you make of the latest action?
Well, it's always, retailers can be, you want to see better earnings forecasts for the third and fourth quarter. That's what you want to see. You didn't get it, so that automatically takes some of the wind out of the sails of the retailers. You look at home builders, you look at you look at Lowe's and you look at Home Depot. To me, those are very significant earnings, and their forecasts going forward were actually fairly positive. So that's to me is significant. Seeing Abercrombie & Fitch or American Eagle or some of these firms coming in a little light. All right, so the kids aren't buying their clothes anymore. It doesn't mean they're not buying clothes. It just means that with fashion, it moves very quickly from one place to another, and that's typical of that space. So you look at the bigger retailers, that's important. You look at retailers outside of the clothing and apparel space, and you see what how this economy is doing. And looking at Home Depot and Lowe's, there's still some strength.
And Peter, before I let you go, I do want to ask you about Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Now, this year Bernanke will not be there, so what will you be paying attention to in terms of any commentary? Well,
you would think that there's a message going to be sent there. Every year there is, and sometimes it takes these Wharton MBAs to sit there and try to figure out what they're saying. There are going to be some Fed governors out there. I'm sure they're going to be pounding the table with the same line that they, after you read today's notes, you're going to see that they're going to be saying the same thing over the weekend. They're going to be spending more time in the hot tubs than they are really giving any kind of insight. I don't think you're going to see much come out of there. I really don't.
Okay, Peter. Well, thank you so much for your insight and analysis as always, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.